Hello, everyone. Today, I want to share with you three of the most important things that have helped me and really help anyone have healthy relationships, whether those are professional, but even relationships in your personal life, right? Personal relationships. So, I'm of course gonna explain this in a very quick way, but you can go much, much deeper, right? With my clients, I go very deep into these things. So the first thing is, are you operating out of agreements or expectations? We don't realize that very often we have trouble in our relationships because we're going by expectations and we haven't even communicated those expectations to people. So when we can switch to agreements, like we're transparent about things, we agree on things, we can count on each other, then things massively, massively shift, including the ability to say, you know what, we're not a good match, again, whether it's personal or professional, and there's goodwill in going separate ways. All right, so agreements or expectations is number one. Number two, it's almost never about you. Right? So really stop taking things so personally. And I have to tell you, it's really hard for me, very often. But the reality is that we think it's about us way, way more often than it actually is. Most of the time, whatever people are saying or doing is just based on what they're thinking, what they see reality as, what's going on with them. It is very rare that they're out to get us, or they're trying to do something to push our buttons or all that kind of stuff. So the more you can stay with an impersonal view of things and have that little bit of detachment or separation or observation, the easier it is to engage in whatever you need to engage with the other person. All right. What about the third tip? Okay, so this is another one that's really big, but I do have an actual recording on my website. If you look in my podcast, like the podcasts that I've been a guest in, you'll find something about boundaries because the next tip is that you really need to be clear about what's your job and what's the other person's job. What are you responsible for and what is the other person's responsibility? So what I mean by that, I don't just mean like tasks, right, in a job, things to do, but I mean even internally. So here's an example that I think trips up a lot of people. We are all responsible for to be authentic, right? So if we have a need, we're responsible for expressing our need or for asking for what we want, right? The other person is not responsible for giving it to us, okay? With some exceptions, like we're talking about children or whatever, but they're not responsible. But they are responsible for authentically sharing yes or no, saying yes or no, or sharing what they need, right? So lots of troubles. We get into a lot of trouble when we get confused about this. And we think that because we ask for something, the other person has to give it to us. So they're responsible for our own needs, right? Or they ask us for something and we think we're responsible for how they feel. So then we are not authentic with what we say. So this is like, for example, people pleasers, right? Yes, guilty sometimes. I had to work a lot on this and I less often fall into it, but I'm still guilty sometimes. Um, Somebody asks me for something and I feel the pressure that, oh no, I should be nice, I should say yes, they'll be really upset if I say no. And then what happens? I'm inauthentic in saying yes, and then I resent them, right? And I start thinking all these things, and suddenly I make them responsible for my resentment, and I make myself responsible for making them feel good. Okay, no, no, right? So be very clear. What's your job and what's the other person's job? All right, so to sum it up, Three things that will help you in every relationship, professionally or in your personal life. Agreements or expectations. Stick with agreements, okay? Notice when you're falling into unspoken, especially expectations. It's not as personal as you think, all right? So really keep a little bit of that impersonal, detached point of view that, okay, probably whatever they're saying or doing is not about you as much as it might seem to you that it's about you. And number three, be very clear what's your job and what's their job, not just as a task, but also as far as feelings and how you or the other person feels. All right, I'm gonna leave you with that. Have a wonderful weekend.